Living in Brookline for 26 years, I've always known it to be a progressive place. Just last year, Brookline lowered the minimum voting age in municipal elections to 16 and became the first municipality in the U.S. to say it would supply all of its public bathrooms with menstrual products. But I recently became aware of an issue that our town has had for years: a shortage of affordable housing for low-income and middle-class people. How did I find out about this? Well, I tried to find an apartment. Times 12. So 16,200. And if that's 30%, then I would want to divide that by 0.3. So I'd have to make at least 54,000 to be able to get a studio apartment in Brookline. That's a lot for a journalist.
You have to make what?
What's going on?
The amount that people are supposed to pay as a percentage of their income, is a 30% going toward rent, is in places like Brookline laughable.
Let's say you're elderly. Well, that third includes medicine. And then let's consider, a young family and daycare. Well, you could spend $1,000 a week for daycare. Well, that doesn't get covered.
Also, in Brookline, you can't park on the street overnight, so that becomes an expense. Properties that have parking associated with them are more expensive. And if it doesn't have a parking space, then you have to figure out what you're going to do with your car.
It's kind of two branches, and one is capital A affordability, and one is lowercase a affordable housing. So capital A affordability is very prescriptive from the state, and it is a very regimented system that is overseen by a number of government agencies. Lowercase affordable housing or affordability is more about, is there enough stock, housing stock, to meet the demand that's in the marketplace?
There's nothing we can do to expand the amount of public housing stock without the support of the federal government, except for one other thing. There's the real estate transfer fee.
The real estate transfer fee is a 2% fee on property sales that are worth more than $500,000. The fee would go towards the Affordable Housing Trust, allowing Brookline to build more affordable units.
That's something that we can do here in Brookline. And so that's something that our town meeting passed. We're waiting on the legislature to give us approval, and then it'll require final approval by the voters.
Most of our revenue comes from property taxes, and costs are rising faster than we can raise revenue because we're very reliant, overly reliant in my opinion, on residential property taxes. If we don't continue to build more people into the system, we will keep going back to the same people to fund all of the projects that people want to fund. At some point, we will price a lot of moderate income, certainly low income people out of Brookline. And low to moderate income people are disproportionately seniors and disproportionately people of color.
Both of the full options are going to be provided all the way through the various hearings between now and May, and then town meeting is going to look at the two and they're going to decide which one they prefer.
Roger and I are at Holland Hall on Fisher Hill, which used to be part of Newbury College. Senior housing developer Welltower purchased the Newbury College site in September of 2019. If town meeting approves warrant articles 9 through 12 in June 2020, Welltower could work with affordable housing developer New Atlantic Development to build 18 mixed-income condos for purchase at Holland Hall. The condos would then be promoted, monitored, and filled by Brookline's Housing Division, a department of local government. The alternative would be for Welltower to contribute $6.5 million to the Affordable Housing Trust. This money would be set aside for updating senior public housing for rent at the Colonel Floyd Apartments and Coolidge Corner, which are owned by the Brookline Housing Authority.
They have an existing senior housing site which has very obsolete housing that they would tear down 60 units and in its place rebuild 100 or a little more than 100 new units, elevator units. So there would be an addition of 40 to 45 new units plus the modernizing of 60, and that would be the alternative to putting 18 units here.
Rental and ownership opportunities, like the two presented by Welltower's development project, benefit occupants differently.
We've got a lot of federal programs that are designed to help folks subsist, to be able to continue to live somehow, basically, right? To be able to, public housing, Section 8, and other forms of government assistance, but not enough investment in their ability to actually to build equity and to be able to pass that on to the next generation. And that's where affordable home ownership comes in.
I think as it relates to the affordable housing component, I certainly want to build homes that people can buy at affordable rates. And, I think that affordable home ownership, the opportunity to actually buy, is an opportunity to build generational wealth, especially for those who've been locked out of it for so long. Unfortunately, I had a chance to look into our track record around affordable home ownership, and as it relates to racial equity, it is not a good one. We have 153 affordable condos out there currently, and are being occupied by 5 Black residents. Compare that to the track record of the BHA, where the percentage of folks of color is significantly higher than that. I think on average between our state and federal public housing, it's about 25% Black residents in those houses. And actually through Section 8, it's even higher than that.
Since 2016, the Housing Division has held 3 lotteries to resell affordable condos in Brookline. This was a breakdown by race of applicants for the most recent lottery held in October 2019. I was told that data for the other 2 were inaccessible due to COVID. But even if I had received data on the applicants for all 3 lotteries, it would still be incomplete. What were the races and ethnicities of people who were more likely to be chosen for housing as a result of Brookline's local preference policy? Where do people drop out, or are they deemed ineligible, and why? Who wins at each stage of the application process? What would the data say if we had all of it?
The unseen cost is experience and diversity and cultural. If certain groups in Brookline can no longer afford to be here, I wonder how many of those great cultural events will continue. And then if you're not exposed to different types of people with different backgrounds, I think that actually makes it a little bit weaker when it comes to looking at policies and seeing whether or not that's right for our community.
Affordable housing issues in Brookline are multi-layered and complex, involving different organizations, housing types, and guidelines. But according to the reporting I've done, two things do seem clear. Brookline needs more housing. It also needs to analyze, centralize, and publicize the data around who wins at each stage of the lottery process and who eventually receives the housing that it has. Otherwise, how can residents know that current policies and suggested changes provide equal access to housing opportunities as they're meant to?
If we're not focused on that, if we're not thinking about who's living there, then we're not going to create more opportunities for folks of color to move into Brookline.
I would say that most people in this town are well-intentioned, and we just didn't know. And I'm from the school that now that you know, you can't say that you don't.